and the despair is revelation about what life will be like from this second forward, followed by the stark realization that no one did anything substantial to prevent nuclear World War III, that this didn't have to happen, and now it is too late. History lesson number 9, Apes on a Treadmill. One day in 1975, Foreign Policy magazine published an essay written by a defense official turned nuclear disarmament advocate named Paul C. Warnke. This essay, called Apes on a Treadmill, remains prescient to this day. In it, Warnke criticized not only how insanely dangerous nuclear weapons are, but how wasteful the entire nuclear arms race is and always has been. He called it a monkey see, monkey do phenomenon, with all participants copying one another's aggressive moves and getting absolutely nowhere, like unintelligent beasts. Even worse, Warnke pointed out, was that the runners in the race didn't seem to realize there was no way for any one person or any one group to actually win. That we are all apes on a treadmill, slaving away. The visual seared in people's minds, and the article faded from view. Then, in 2007, writing in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a group of young scientists inadvertently provided a fascinating new twist to the apes on a treadmill idea. The scientists were exploring bipedalism, the theory that our ancient ancestors learned to walk upright because it took less energy than quadrupedal knuckle walking. To advance this hypothesis, they equipped 5 chimpanzees and 4 people with oxygen masks and then put them on treadmills. The scientists collected data about oxygen usage in the apes and in the humans to see what they might learn. They wanted to know if energy expenditure could account for why some apes evolved to develop the intellect of today's humans, while others stayed behind in the jungle as unenlightened beasts. In gathering the data, an unexpected anecdote came to the fore, one that shines a light on Warnke's essay. As it turns out, some of the chimps didn't want to participate in the treadmill experiment. Anthropologist David Reichlin, one of the scientists involved, told Reuters journalist Will Dunham what he observed of the apes. These guys, the apes, are smart enough that they would hit the stop button on the treadmill when they were done, Reichlin said. In other words, if an ape didn't want to continue on the race to nowhere, they'd just hit the stop button or they'd jump off. A question remains. If the apes know how to get off the treadmill, why don't we? 57 minutes. The handmaidens of the apocalypse arrive. U.S. Strategic Command Headquarters gets hit first by an onslaught of nuclear warheads launched from Russian subs that surfaced off the East Coast minutes ago. The warheads strike off at Air Force Base in Nebraska with the goal of destroying Stratcom's underground Global Operations Center. This nuclear command and control bunker was designed to withstand a direct hit from a single 1-megaton nuclear weapon, not necessarily a catastrophic bombardment by multiple 100-kiloton warheads near simultaneously. Decades ago, defense scientists calculated that one bomb with a yield of 1 megaton destroys 80 to 100 square miles, not counting the mass fire, while 10 smaller bombs, each with a yield of 100 kilotons, destroys an area more than twice that size. The light around each of the exploding weapons superheats the air to millions of degrees, creating massive nuclear fireballs that expand in diameter at millions of miles per hour. The heat, so intense, all concrete surfaces explode, metal melts, humans transform into combusting carbon. Some people below ground will burn to death slowly, others will carbonize instantly, depending on where they are when the bombs detonate. Off at Air Force Base, as well as all of greater Omaha, Nebraska, birthplace of the pink hair curler and butter brickle ice cream, and a great majority of the nearly 500,000 people living here, are incinerated. At nearly the same time, another torrent of 100-kiloton warheads strikes Raven Rock Mountain Complex in Pennsylvania. The payload yields don't mean much of anything anymore. 100, 400, or 500 kilotons, 1 or 2 megatons, MIRVed or not MIRVed. Everything in America's nuclear command and control system is in the process of being systematically destroyed. The original Raven Rock building plans were drawn by the same engineer who designed Hitler's bunker beneath Berlin. In the end of that war, it wasn't the barrage of Allied firepower that killed Hitler. He shot himself in the head. The Raven Rock Mountain Complex is supposed to function as a centerpiece of America's continuity of operations plans, to keep the federal government performing essential functions, even after a nuclear war. But like Stratcom, Site R was designed to withstand a direct hit from a 1-megaton weapon, not a barrage of warheads decimating everything around as far as the eye can see. The President of the United States, lying on the forest floor some 45 miles to the southeast, becomes a casualty of this nuclear deluge. His body catches on fire, and he carbonizes. The next targets hit by a volley of Russian submarine-launched ballistic missiles are in Colorado. At the Missile Warning Center inside Cheyenne Mountain, at NORAD headquarters at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs, and at Buckley Space Force Base in Aurora. These nuclear warfighting facilities, and all their supporting facilities, absorb multiple MIRVed Russian warheads all at once. For the more than 1 million people living here at the eastern foot of the Rocky Mountains, it is as if the whole world has been set on fire. Another stream of 100-kiloton warheads strikes multiple military targets across numerous states. The intention is to destroy all redundant components of U.S. nuclear command and control in a matter of minutes. In Louisiana, Barksdale Air Force Base gets hit, the once mighty headquarters of Global Strike Command, home to the nation's nuclear-armed B-52 long-range bombers, is no more. In Montana, Malmstrom Air Force Base is annihilated by nuclear warheads. Malmstrom is the base that operates, maintains, and oversees 150 Minuteman III ICBMs. All of the Minuteman III ICBMs have launched from their silos and are now on a ballistic trajectory to strike Russia. Payback for Russia's decision to launch. In North Dakota, Minot Air Force Base, home to another arsenal of Minuteman III ICBMs, is similarly destroyed. Same goes for the F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming. On the East Coast, in the coastal town of Cutler, Maine, population 500, the VLF transmitter facility, providing one-way communications to the Navy's ballistic missile submarines, is hit and destroyed. Same goes for the Jim Creek Naval Radio Station outside Arlington in Washington state, and for a third facility in Lualua, Hawaii, a large coastal valley in Oahu, whose name translates as Beloved One Spared. As this final blitzkrieg of SLBM warheads strikes and destroys their targets, all that remains of America's nuclear command and control are its doomsday planes in the air and its Trident submarines at sea. As the 1960 Single Integrated Operational Plan for General Nuclear War foretold, the war is now just about numbers, about a mass extermination plan that leaves billions of human beings dead. 58 minutes, Aviano Air Base, Italy. Targets across Europe get hit at the same time. A slew of the Russian SLBMs launched from the Arctic Ocean hit NATO bases across Europe. In a ruinous barrage of nuclear explosions, air bases in Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, and Turkey become consumed in fire and obliterated by blast. Nuclear warheads inside Russian MIRVed ICBMs fly on depressed trajectories and strike London, Paris, Berlin, Brussels, Amsterdam, Rome, Ankara, Athens, Zagreb, Tallinn, Tirana, Helsinki, Stockholm, Oslo, Kiev, and other targets in a wave of mass extermination. All enemies of Russia from the Russian military's point of view. Obliterated in this mayhem are not just the millions of people living, working, and visiting these places, but also scores of civilizations' engineering masterpieces: Rome's Colosseum, Notre Dame de Paris, Hagia Sophia, Stonehenge, the Parthenon. Iconic representations of human ingenuity and imagination disappear in a succession of nuclear fireballs. The Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, the Banyabashi Mosque in Bulgaria, the National Library of Finland, Estonia's Toompea Castle, the Temple of Augustus in Ankara, Big Ben. Like everything in Washington, D.C., it was all there one moment, and then, just seconds later, gone. 59 minutes, the Atlantic Ocean. America is not done launching its own nuclear missiles. The Trident submarines receive final launch orders from doomsday planes flying over the ocean, as designed during the Cold War. These final launch messages allow U.S. aircraft to communicate with subsurface ballistic missile systems even after the U.S. electric grid has gone down, after U.S. nuclear command and control has unraveled and failed. These last U.S. launch orders are performed using the Very Low Frequency System, which transmits at 15 to 60 kilohertz, also known as the AN/FRC-117 Survivable Low Frequency Communication System. Flying in circles over the Atlantic Ocean, the last of the E-6B Doomsday Fleet airplanes deploys its 5-mile-long antenna. This long, thin wire trails out an opening in the back of the airplane until it becomes stabilized by a small parachute called a drogue. The E-6B airplane goes into a steep bank turn like a spiral, sending out its final nuclear launch messages one digit at a time. VLF bandwidth has a very low data transfer rate, just 35 alphanumeric characters per second. This is slower than the first-generation dial-up modems, but fast enough to transmit final emergency action messages to Trident submarines thousands of miles away. Messages that, in turn, allow the Tridents to deliver one final nuclear blow as a follow-on punch to the entire U.S. nuclear triad of weapons that is presently on its way to targets across Russia. The commands are received. It will take another 15 minutes or so for the last of the Trident missiles to begin launch. No one in America, including the submarine crews, will end up knowing if, or what, these missiles hit. The epic, existential tragedy is that these last and final nuclear battle maneuvers cease to matter on anyone's scoreboard. Everyone loses. Everyone. 72 minutes, United States of America. At minute 72 of a conflict that began at 3:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1,000 Russian nuclear warheads begin striking America in a 20-minute-long barrage of nuclear hellfire. 1,000 nuclear warheads strike a nation already decimated by 192 Russian SLBM warheads and 2 North Korean thermonuclear bombs. North Korea's third and final ICBM, launched from the Haejongni underground facility in Hwapyeong County, North Korea, failed upon re-entry. The barrage of 1,000 nuclear weapons strikes a nation already stripped of electricity and littered with the dead bodies of nuclear bomb blast victims, victims of radiation poisoning, of airplane, train, subway, and automobile crashes, of chemical explosions, of floods from burst dams. There are 1,000 flashes of light superheating the air in each ground zero to 180 million degrees Fahrenheit. 1,000 fireballs, each one more than a mile in diameter. 1,000 steeply fronted blast waves. 1,000 walls of compressed air, accompanied by several 100-mile-per-hour winds, pushing forward from the 1,000 fireballs, mowing down everything and everyone in the path. 1,000 American cities and towns, where all engineered structures in a 5, 6, or 7-mile radius change physical shapes, collapse, and burn. 1,000 cities and towns with molten asphalt streets. 1,000 cities and towns with survivors impaled to death by flying debris. 1,000 cities and towns filled with tens of millions of dead, with tens of millions of unfortunate survivors suffering fatal third-degree burns. People naked, tattered, bleeding, and suffocating. People who don't look or act like people anymore. 1,000 ground zeros transforming into 1,000 megafires, each soon to be burning over an area of 100 or more square miles. Across America and Europe, hundreds of millions of people are dead and dying, while hundreds of military aircraft fly circles in the air until they run out of fuel, while the last of the Trident submarines move stealthily out at sea, patrolling in circles until the crews run out of food.